Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of Loremasters HS. It is us. It is I, your co host, Blakarot, and with me, as always,
Goliath the Dwarf, resident Loremaster at your service, and as always, very happy to be here. We have quite the story for you guys tonight because we're talking about a really big character in WoW and a really big one of the original super powerful cards in Hearthstone. Give it up for Ragnaros the Firelord,
oh
everybody.
man, yo, woo! I wish I had a little drink to celebrate this one here, man. This is going to be a great classic episode. Ragnaros the Firelord holds a special heart, I think, in every person who's played this game, whether it be Hearthstone or World of Warcraft. Um, just the fiery power he has, like all the excitement and energy coming with him, like it's so cool. When I opened my first Ragnaros playing Hearthstone, playing the card, he pops on the board, and at the end of the turn, he sends a gigantic fireball at the opponent. So cool. I love this character right here.
Oh yeah, man. I actually Hearthstone was actually my first exposure to Ragnaros because I encountered the card and I encountered the character in the Blackrock adventure before I started learning all about the story in Warcraft, kind of between when I was starting to get into it and before I actually understood who all these characters were. So it was a big first impression for the character on me from the card as well.
Yeah, he's
And
just so
also
yeah. Hmm.
orange is my favorite color, so I'm kind of partial to all these fiery elemental characters.
Yeah, man, the orange is so bright and powerful, and like it's just like I love it, man. Like everything about Ragnaros is so cool, and as of right now, and they made a new card for Ragnaros. They gave him a diamond edition, so Ragnaros already looked beautiful in the golden version, but the diamond Ragnaros, total next level. So we had to make this episode, ready to get into it. Episode 3, Lord Masters HS, Ragnaros the Firelord. We're gonna have Goliath the Dwarf take it away.
All right. So this is some really big information right here because we're talking about elementals, which means we are talking about some of the ancient history, the primordial history of Azeroth itself. And we're going to have to establish a couple of big cosmological rules here. So get ready for some big picture stuff.
Wait,
So
say, say that word again. The Cosmo what?
cosmological, as in relating to the cosmos, the rules of the big picture universe, essentially.
Big brain words. Cosmological. Okay, that's going
Yeah,
on my. I love that. That's going on my whiteboard. Take it away.
yeah, it's a fun one. So anyway, so there's something that you need to know about the world of Azeroth itself, and that is that it is actually alive. The entire planet of Azeroth has a it's a unique world that contains what's called a world soul, which is basically a baby titan who is a powerful cosmic being, and
Hmm.
titans basically it's kind of like the little egg that a world soul sleeps in before it grows up to be a titan that can just wander around the universe as it wants to.
Okay.
And in order to do that, it is Azeroth is a very powerful one, and so it absorbs a lot of what is called the element of spirit. So that there's different elements in the universe. The four primary ones are fire, earth, water, and air. And then there's also things that are called the spirits of life and decay, kind of like a creation destruction thing. And you need a lot of spirit to keep the other elements peaceful and balanced and just kind of basically being nothing but fire and water and earth and air. But because the sleeping world soul of the planet Azeroth absorbed so much, like a chicken and egg who has to feed on the yolk in order to grow, basically it sucks all of this in and makes the other elements very, very aggressive. So you have the 4 elemental lords. In our first slide right here, you can see 3 of them are Hearthstone cards. One of them is not yet. So the 3 that we have are our main topic, Ragnaros the Firelord. We also have Neptulon, the Water Lord. We have Alakir, the Wind Lord, and Thursane, the Stone Mother, who really should be a legendary card for Shaman, preferably, or neutral. And when Ungoro came out and they introduced the Elemental tribal, I was so sure that they were going to finally put Therazane in, but they didn't. And as of this current recording in May 2021, they still haven't made it. I hope that listening in the future, you get to see this card. But right now, I really wish that we had a matching set of Elemental Lords.
Oh, that would be so cool. So Neptulon is the Water Lord.
Yeah,
I never knew that. I see Alakir is the Wind Lord, Ragnaros is the Fire Lord, but Neptulon is the Water Lord. That's pretty
yeah, he's basically the he's their equal. And it's easy where you wouldn't necessarily understand that because they decided to make his card relate to Murlocs for some reason, which doesn't make a ton of lore sense. But they decided that Murlocs
cool.
have a
Yeah.
lot to do with Shaman and Hearthstone for whatever reason.
Yeah, look at
So
Ragnaros' ability. So if Neptulon is a Water Lord and is supposed to be an equal to Ragnaros in the lore, they really didn't do Neptulon justice as a Hearthstone card. That's so sad to see.
yeah, and we'll talk about Neptulon in another episode. But the core thing to understand here is that these are basically the 4 most powerful beings who formed on Azeroth, basically in its prehistoric times, not even prehistoric, primordial. They were, before there was any sense of nature or living things, there were these chaotic elementals. And let me tell you something, Mike,
Yeah.
they hated each other. They were
Ooh.
constantly going to war back and forth in utter complete chaos because I said before, normally you have the peaceful elements like we have here on earth. Fire is just fire, and the idea is because you have the harmonizing spirit, but that's all getting sucked up, so they're just really aggressive, and they have eons and eons of constant war. They can't really destroy each other. That's the thing about being an elemental. You're bound to the world that you exist on, and you are basically indestructible on that world. And so it's basically a constant futile battle where they keep respawning over and over and over.
Oh man,
uh,
that sounds like a great video game. Free respawns, but I understand they can
it would
actually
be,
destroy each other.
honestly. Yeah, if they ever want to make more spin-off games, we like play, yeah, playing as the Elemental Lords. That could be a decent game
Oh
actually.
yeah, hey, if they make a Hearthstone Battlegrounds, I'll take an Elemental Lord so I can get free respawns easily. Oh yeah.
uh, but all of this changed when the old gods came crashing down onto Azeroth. And
Oh,
yeah, so we're not going to get too much into exactly where the old gods came from, because that's an entirely different thing that we can talk about in another episodes when we cover one of the old gods. But
yes.
basically, they aren't native, they aren't natural on Azeroth. They came crashing down from malevolent beings in the universe from the sky, like giant fleshy meteorites, really
Oh,
disgusting, just oozing corruption. And their goal is to subjugate the entire world and to corrupt everything, and so they can corrupt the world soul sleeping inside and turn it into an evil titan, basically.
okay.
And in order to do that, they decide, we're going to conquer these elemental lords as well. And in response to that, the elemental lords did the one thing they've never done, which we have an image of that here, of the lots of old god minions swarming and the elemental lords all fighting together, because that's the thing. they actually began to work together because they had a common enemy
Oh, they do?
now. Yeah. And one of the coolest things that's specifically mentioned in the lore about one of the team ups they did, it's kind of like, in some games you have special combo moves if you have people who have different abilities and you can put them together.
Yeah.
Well, Alakir and Ragnaros did a combo move of creating huge fire tornadoes that went and destroyed old god citadels and cities and stuff. And just imagine how cool that would look. The two of
Yeah.
them, like not just tornado, not just a wall of flame, a tornado made of fire.
Pretty
That's
sick.
pretty badass there.
Yeah. I love that.
But unfortunately, it was all for naught because the old gods just were too powerful and they kept spawning out more and more minions. And
Ooh.
eventually they enslaved the elemental lords, kind of like, mind controlled them. And the elemental lords, including Ragnaros, became their top generals. So now we move forward a little bit to where the Titans come, and they see Azeroth. They see that there's a Titan inside it, and they can't let that Titan get corrupted by the old gods. And so they decide they need to go and put a stop to all this.
Oh,
There's just,
moving along.
yeah, mm-hmm, yeah. So,
All right.
but
Slide two.
they have a little problem. Um, the little problem is that the Titans are just too big. As in, like, if they, well, can imagine you reaching down into a sandbox and trying to get out some ants or something. Odds are that you might accidentally crush the sandbox because of your huge hands. Uh,
Ah.
and so that's what the Titans are to the planet, and they might destroy it accidentally. And so what they do is they create lots of tiny little, to them, giant to the world, creatures called the Titan Keepers, that forged out of basically living metal and stone. And moving along to our third slide, we have two of them who are key right here. Their names are Odin and Tyr. And basically, they're made to be the smaller things, like kind of living robots, but more than robots, who go and fight the battles, who are the proper size for this.
Okay, time out.
And
Time out.
yeah,
Whoa. All right, we got a lot to unpack here. So
I know.
for our listeners here, let's get this all in order. So you're saying Azeroth has a soul at the center of it,
Correct.
and that soul is sucking the energy from elementals.
It's sucking the energy that would normally make them calm, happy, and peaceful. And without
Oh,
that,
okay.
that's why they're so aggressive all the
That's why
time.
Ragnaros is throwing lethal to face every turn. Understood. Okay.
Exactly.
So
He's really mad because someone took away his
happy.
ASMR or something.
Yeah, they took away his happiness. Okay, so
Yeah.
this world soul is sucking away what takes the what would give the elementals happiness. So now, since the elementals are angry, you're saying they were corrupted from
They
old gods,
were
and
they were already aggressive, but the old gods went and enslaved them as well, correct?
understood. So the I'm sorry. So Ragnaros and the other elementals became enslaved by the old gods, and then that's what
Mm-hmm.
lands us here, this next level of. Got you.
Right. And so basically, so you have the Titans and these Titan keepers that they created who are trying to fight the old gods. And so the old gods send out the elemental lords as their big generals to wage war on them. And what happened is that so these two right here, Odin, who is the guy, he has like this big lava beard that makes no sense, but I absolutely love. And Tyr has this like really bright shining hammer and stuff. And
So
by the
heroic.
way, mm-hmm, yeah, he's actually the one who throwback to our previous episode when we talked about paladins. He's the one who the Order of the Silver Hand is named after because he had a silver hand that became a monument after he later made a heroic sacrifice, and that was kind of an inspiration for paladins.
Oh yeah,
So,
look at his hand. It's literally silver. Okay.
so we have a bit of a link right there.
Excellent.
Um, but anyway, so these two Titan Keepers are the ones who teamed up to defeat Ragnaros. They tracked him down to his big volcanic lair where he was the strongest, and they managed to trick him into thinking that they were cowards, and so he kind of let his guard down. But then they went and ambushed him,
Ooh.
and because they're made of metal, like indestructible metal, his fire didn't hurt them like it would, us, because we're flesh and blood and bone and all of that.
Yeah.
But he just
Unfortunate.
throws fire, and they're like, "Man, okay, I'm a little warm, but that's no biggie." And so that's how he was able to be defeated. And if we move on to our image of the Firelands portal here, this is where the elemental planes come into existence.
Okay.
Because as we already mentioned, you can't kill an elemental, at least not on this world where they originate from, because they'll just respawn, basically.
Yeah.
And so
Can't
what the
just.
Titan
Yep.
Keepers did is they created special prison worlds, in a sense, the elemental planes that they could lock the elemental lords and their minions in, so that they're still there, it's still connected to Azeroth, but they aren't on Azeroth causing trouble. And so the Firelands is where Ragnaros was banished to and made his rules over. And you can make portals to these places if you are a powerful magic user on Azeroth. That's where shamans, when they summon elementals, they summon it from one of these planes. Even though this is a mage card for whatever reason, this is actually something that summoning something from the Firelands would be something a shaman would be more likely to do.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
But they like to have mages have mages have a lot of fire spells, and they do sometimes have their own different connection to elementals. That's another topic, but yeah, so
Oh, and also one
that's
more
what the
layer.
Firelands are.
One more layer. At the time of this recording, May 16th, 2021, and for the past 7 years, they just love to give mages incredible cards. So that's also a thing.
Yeah.
This could have been a shaman card. Come on, look at this. That's cool to know. Thanks, Goliath.
No problem. So anyway, that is where Ragnaros is banished to, the Firelands, and where he stays for quite some time, for many eons and millennia and centuries, until something really stupid happens, to be perfectly honest. If we move on to our fifth slide here.
Hey, real quick
you
before we move on, because I rudely
Mhm.
talked over you, can you tell us at home one more time who were the people or beings that created these portals?
So these were the Titan Keepers, the ones who defeated the Elemental Lords and locked them away. It's basically a way to make sure that they can't cause trouble on Azeroth. So they created the Elemental Planes. There's a plane for each element. The Firelands. There's a place called Skywall for the air elementals. There's a place called Deep Home where the earth elementals live, and then there's. I actually am forgetting the name of the water one at the moment,
Is
but
it
they
Serpent
have one as
Shrine
well.
portal?
Um, no, that might be a location within it, or a location connected to it. No. Serpent Shrine. Now that I remember, but yeah, that's just that card is just a callback to the portal style. It's not actually to an elemental plane.
Okay.
But yeah, yes, that's the basics of all that. And again, this is some other stuff we can talk about in episodes a bit more related to those topics. But we've already branched out really far, and so
Oh
it's
yeah, let's
probably
pull it
good. We're
back.
just going to be very focused on Ragnaros now.
Yeah, let's
We
get back
had
to
to
the
talk
Fire
about a
Lord.
bit more general stuff beforehand, but now it's Ragnaros, and only Ragnaros. So don't worry.
Die,
We
insect.
yes. So, on our fifth slide right here, as we move along, we have this amazing image of Ragnaros basically just kind of bursting out of the ground and stuff. And that's because of dwarfs. Um,
Ooh.
so, a little context is that there were three clans of dwarves that developed, all had their own cultures and such in Ironforge, and eventually the king who was ruling them all passed away, and they erupted into a big civil war called the War of the Three Hammers about which clan would be triumphant. They were called the Bronzebeard clan, the Wildhammer clan, and the Dark Iron clan. Well, the Bronzebeard clan won, and the Dark Irons were really upset about that, and
Uh-oh.
so they attempted to fight back
Oh
to
no.
strike at the headquarters of both of the other clans. They utterly failed. They are in a big retreat, and the sorcerer king named Thursane is panicking because his armies are being surrounded, and so he tries to do some sort of summoning thing to call on some being from another world to help him. He completely by accident,
Yeah.
in moments of panic, summons Ragnaros himself into the world.
Wait a
Out
second. Are you talking about Emperor Thaurissan?
close. This is his ancestor. We're going to get to Emperor Thaurissan in a sec.
Oh.
But yeah, this is a previous Thaurissan who
Oh.
just, in a moment of sheer and utter panic, is like, someone, anyone, please come and defeat these other dwarves who are going to defeat my Dark Iron Dwarf army. And Ragnaros just erupts into the world, getting
What?
yanked out of the Firelands,
What the heck?
and it causes so much upheaval that this is what actually creates the volcano of Black Rock Mountain. It didn't exist before. He just creates so much destruction in that area by his mere entering into the world
Oh,
from a
what?
crazy dwarf accidentally yanking him in, that he completely shatters the landscape around and creates an entirely humongous new volcano.
Oh, it's sick. That's so awesome.
Yeah. Uh,
Ragnarok.
Unfortunately, it wasn't so awesome for all of the dwarves.
Oh, I doubt it.
The Bronzebeard and Wildhammer clans completely panicked and retreated, which is what the Dark Irons wanted, but it didn't turn out quite the way they hoped because Ragnaros kind of enslaved them all. Uh, and they
Oh.
all went to live in Blackrock Mountain. They built a place called Shadowforge City, and if we move along, we can see that they're basically forced to worship Ragnaros and his lieutenants. Um, and that is the situation that is in place when World of Warcraft starts. Now we're getting into
Oh,
things that
okay.
happen during the actual game. This is all stuff that happened beforehand.
Got it.
But yes, now we can talk about Emperor Thursane, who I must say was one of my favorite cards when I first started playing because I loved the idea of just my costs getting reduced.
Yeah,
I
it's
included
amazing.
him in pretty much everything.
Very cool ability.
Yeah. And we actually have an image of him right on our next slide as we move along here. Um, so we have Emperor Thursane, and we also have Magni Bronzebeard, who is the king of the Bronzebeard clan of dwarves, and his daughter
Oh.
Moira Bronzebeard, who you may remember, she's not a collectible card, but she's a part of the Emperor Thursane boss fight in the Black Rock Mountain adventure, and
Wh-
she's key to the story here.
What is the relation to Magni?
Well, she's his daughter.
She's the daughter of Magni. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she kind of got kidnapped by Emperor Thursane as part of the war between the clans, Dark Irons. they're serving Ragnaros. He's kind of making them, prepare the world for my coming type of stuff.
Yeah.
And so, as not to mention, they just want to be able to get back. They hold a big grudge against the other dwarves, and so he kidnaps the princess of the Bronzebeards.
Uh-oh.
She somehow, not being Stockholm syndrome, legitimately falls in love with him. He falls in love with her, and she cannot convince her dad that no, she is not being manipulated. She actually chooses to stay there. Um, I I don't know how to explain how this isn't Stockholm syndrome, but according to the lore, it's not. Um,
Okay. Okay.
but so she becomes the queen of all the Dark Iron dwarfs,
Oh.
and she wants, and her husband wants to be able to get them out of slavery to Ragnaros. And so what she does is she leaks a lot of rumors to the adventurers of the outside world, the Alliance and Horde and so on, letting them know that, there's potentially a lot of power down in Blackrock Mountain. Maybe there's a lot of treasure. Just kind of letting rumors get out that will attract people who will come and fight the Fire Lord that will free your people. And she also gets the attention of a group of water elementals known as the Hydraxian Water Lords, who also really hate Ragnaros because fire and water are kind of opposites,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, no matter
And
what fantasy world you're in.
yeah, yeah, the idea of elements, the four elements, is very common in a lot of fantasy worlds, and it's kind of a really unique version that Warcraft has on it. But there's still a lot of the basic themes here, and essentially, um, there's a lot of adventurers. This is actually the very first raid in World of Warcraft, called the Molten Core, where you go down deep into the very depths of Blackrock Mountain. Back in the olden days, the classic, it was a lot harder than it is right now. And you'd get special armor and abilities or some such from the Water Lords that would help you withstand all of the flames. And you fight Ragnaros and his lieutenants. And we have a couple of those lieutenants as cards
Oh,
as
nice.
we move along. We have Baron Geddon, who is one of our classics here. He does 2 damage to all characters. I love how they just have all in all
Oh, oh
capitals here
yeah.
to really emphasize it.
Letting everybody know I don't care who you are.
Yeah, you will burn. And he's one of Ragnaros's top lieutenants right there. Like he is a very high tier Fire Lord. He's not the Fire Lord, obviously. No one overshadows Ragnaros, but
Nah.
he's a very powerful servant.
Yeah, there's only
Um,
one top dog, but
yeah,
every top dog needs their homeboy, so he's the right hand man. I'll take it. Okay,
exactly.
Baron Geddon. Okay.
hmm And then there's a lot of other lieutenants, powerful elementals that don't have their own card, but some of them, like Gar, is one that appears in the adventure. And some of the tavern brawls where you play as Ragnaros, they make a lot of other characters cards that you can play, but they're not. None of them are the typical collectible cards, so we won't be spending really any time talking about them here. But they do exist. Another major, and I'm not quite certain why Major Domo Executus isn't classified as an elemental. I'm pretty sure he's a fire elemental. He's kind of what's called a salamander, basically, and not the amphibian. By actually, the reason that the amphibian that we have in our world is called a salamander is because it's a Greek word that basically has to do with fire, because the
Oh,
Greeks for some reason thought that salamanders were born out of fire. I believe it was because the salamanders would be in logs, And the Greeks wouldn't see him, and they would throw those logs in the fire, and they see these salamanders scoot out. So they think, well, obviously the fire is what created the
Yeah,
salamanders.
yeah, that's pretty
Uh,
cool.
yeah, so that's your bonus fact for the day. But so basically, Majordomo Zecudes is kind of like the big herald of Ragnaros. He's like,
Oh,
here
okay.
comes Ragnaros. All hail Ragnaros. I summon Ragnaros.
Yeah, like that guy
Um,
in Avengers for Thanos, really ugly one. Looks like Squidward.
um, which one?
I forget
Which
his
one are
name,
we
but
talking
he was
about
kind of like the
here?
guy who was like introducing Thanos when he comes around. You bow down. Be thankful
Yeah,
you're gonna die for Thanos. All this crazy talk. Like, nah, man.
yeah, basically like that. Yeah.
Like the
Oh
Herald.
yeah,
Yeah,
like the Black Order and the Avengers and such. Exactly.
yeah.
And yeah, that's the position of Major Domo that exists in the Firelands, and so he is kind of the big head honcho for all of that. You might kind of say the second in command of all of the fire elementals.
Okay.
Um, but then as we move on to our big, beautiful clip of Ragnaros in the game, in the Molten Core here, which, by the way, is there's kind of like this big spiral. So there's a Molten Core card back that is designed right around this area where Ragnaros is sitting. And of course, we have the great game board in Hearthstone that came with Blackrock Mountain, where you have all the you can play around in the lava and everything. That's one of my favorite boards, actually. I think.
Oh
Again,
yeah.
orange is my favorite color, so I'm biased, but I just think it's really cool.
So
And yeah,
so yeah, we're moving on from slide 8 to slide 9. I apologize. But
yeah, yeah. And so is there anything before we move on that we should recap at all?
nope. You should continue on.
Okay, all right. So, basically, so as part of the raid, again, first raid in World of Warcraft, you go around defeating all of these different lieutenants of Ragnaros until you finally fight Majordomo Executus. But you don't kill him. Instead, he's like, okay, look, I give up. You want to fight Ragnaros? Let me show you the power and grandeur of Ragnaros.
Ooh.
And so he goes and then he gives his little speech. And that's where actually you first hear any mention of the old gods or the elemental lords. This was the first time any of that lore had been introduced to Warcraft, basically.
Oh really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a big reveal at the time, I think. Um,
Okay.
but anyway, so he summons Ragnaros, and this is the part where you have the famous line, well, if you play Major Domo Executus and he dies, his death rattle is that you become Ragnaros. But you don't have very much health when you do you? I think
Ooh,
it's just like 5
8.
health, right?
8.
Um, and he says, "Too soon! You have summoned me too soon, Executus."
Yeah.
Um, Basically, the idea being, and the explanation of why we can defeat him in the first place, is that since he is not in his power base of the Firelands, of the Elemental Plane, he is on Azeroth. His power is greatly
Oh.
diminished. This isn't
What?
the full powered Fire Lord here. He is very weakened. He was trying to amass more strength and power, but Major Domo Executus pulled him out before he could, get fully amped up. And
Wow.
so
What a goof.
that's why you don't have much health when you become Ragnaros,
Oh
even though
man.
you have a very powerful ability. Um, and yeah, that's why he has the too soon jokes
I
all
get.
the
Okay.
time. And
That's so
I
interesting to
think,
hear.
yeah, I think when you kill Ragnaros, the card, I think he says "still too soon" or something like that as his dying voice line.
Oh man, I
Um,
gotta try this now. It's so cool to hear you explain Major Domo summoning Ragnaros too soon, and then when they translate it into the Hearthstone card, that's why it has 8 health instead of like
Yeah. Oh,
30.
8 health. Yeah, that's it. It's been a while since I played that at all. So, but yeah, so that is basically the state of Ragnaros. He obviously gets defeated. And by the way, as a reminder, this is the part where for all of those special Hearthstone hero skins that we've gotten recently, that where you have the hero and kind of the upgraded armor, the tier ones. This is the raid where you got those. You had to kill Ragnaros himself in order to get some of these armor pieces that we get in the hero portraits.
So that's why they look pretty sick. Like the hunter one that's holding like a dragon's head with like a cannon looks pretty sick. The mage one, it has like a pretty cool wand, all the orbs around it. The rogue, it's got the blade with the green mist fire around it. Yeah, it looks pretty sick, man.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff here, it's yeah, it was the epic armor of its day. If you saw someone in the game walking around with this, you know that they were a top tier player because they managed to grind out enough of the hardest content at the time to be able to get all this stuff. So it was real prestige, which is why Hearthstone decided to go with these different raid tier armors to represent getting prestige with accomplishments in the game, which I think is a great callback. But yeah, so Ragnaros is defeated, but of course, like we said, respawns. So he just goes back to the elemental plane. He's killed in Azeroth, but he's still running all of the Firelands there. And that comes into play later on because as we move on to slide 10 here,
Man,
we
with
have
all this
two
fire
big
talk.
troublemakers.
Sorry, good.
Huh? Oh, yeah, sorry. We're just going to talk about the next characters. What were you saying about Fire Talk?
Oh no, I was just saying, with all its, this, these elementals and this fire, yeah, I thought I'd see some dragons by now.
Mhm. Yes. Well, we have a big one right here. Deathwing, the Destroyer.
Oh yeah,
Um,
at
but
that
we're also
beautiful.
getting back to the old gods here because remember, Ragnaros is still technically an old god general. Uh, Not that
Oh,
like part of the control has worn away over time, but honestly, he just loves destroying things so much that he's just kind of happy to work with the old gods anyway. At this point. And Nazoth is the old god who's like the big mastermind behind what we call the Cataclysm. Really
oh,
big event, big expansion in World of Warcraft, where basically Deathwing is a dragon who will get his own episode at one point, so we won't
oh
go into him
yes,
too much here. He is a big story, really
oh
major character. But essentially, is that Nazoth corrupted Deathwing a long time ago and kind of made him a champion, a herald of the old gods who is going to go and help to destroy the world to bring about the end of the world where the old gods can reign once again. And the Deathwing, one of his key things here is, oh, you want destruction? Let's use those elemental lords. Let's free them from their prisons in the elemental plane and just set them loose on Azeroth again. And he does that with Ragnaros. And
oh man.
Ragnaros is very happy about that. But Ragnaros needs some new help because he needs a new major domo basically. Major domo Executus was killed.
Oh, but
Ragnaros actually killed him himself in
what?
rage about having being summoned too soon.
I thought it was
Uh,
weak.
he was, but he was still very powerful.
Uh,
Like he's weaker compared to his true power, but it still takes an entire 40-man raid team in order to down him.
oh man,
And he has power over his own lieutenants.
man,
But
he really is a fire lord. Love this guy.
yeah, but now we get into an interesting crossover with, of all the classes, druids. Now,
Druids.
yeah. As we move on to our picture of Fandril Staghelm here, who is the druid legendary from Whispers of the Old God card set. But he was actually a druid who we can maybe tell, maybe we can just skim over his story a bit here. He might be his own episode at one point. But essentially, he was a druid who basically kind of went corrupted and crazy and decided to serve the old gods. And they said, okay, we have a brand new opening for you. You are going to work for Ragnaros. You are going to be his new major domo, his new herald, his
We
new
have a
second in
brand new
command.
opening for you.
Yes, yes, you get to be major domo of all the Firelands, and you can recruit a bunch of other druids who are really disillusioned, and you'll form your own little thing called the Druids of the Flame. And so that's where these
Oh,
guys come from.
what?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they are the ones who they're serving Ragnaros right now in the Firelands. And yeah.
Okay.
And during the Cataclysm, Ragnaros makes this really dramatic entrance. As we move along to our 12th slide right here, we can see basically his portal into the world of Azeroth. It's not quite as dramatic as Blackrock Mountain, but basically because he's been juiced up with power and had his chains broken by N'Zoth and Deathwing, he just erupts into Azeroth with this portal that looks like a really cool fiery volcano palace, basically. And
Yo,
you
this
know,
really,
he's
yeah, for everyone listening on audio, I definitely recommend you come to our YouTube channel and look at this video. This right here looks like like if you played Mario Kart, looks like Bowser's Castle, the lava stage, you know. This
holy
looks
cow, you're right. I never thought of that, but it totally looks like that.
Man, they could do some cool stuff with World of Warcraft. But anyway, sorry, yeah, this
Yeah.
yo, Ragnaros, he's so cool, man. Look at this. Like, yo, you have to be the Fire Lord to have a palace like this, man. This is awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you don't get this by being the fire count or the fire jester or the
Nope.
fire page. No, you have to be the fire lord to have
Lord.
something along this degree of epicness.
Head honcho.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's basically his connection. He's sending all the fires out. He's basically just burn everything, especially things connected to druids, because we love burning nature and trees and all that stuff. It gets like a special joy out of all that for some reason.
Yeah.
Um, and that is actually why, as we move along to our 13th slide, it is the druids who are leading the charge against Ragnaros, because that portal goes both ways. And so they're determined to stop Ragnaros at the source. They form an offensive that goes into the Firelands, and it's led by none
Oh,
other than top dogs of the druids. Okay, we have Cenarius, who is definitely getting his own episode later on. I know
most
I keep saying that about so
definitely.
many cards, but a lot of these stories intersect.
I love it. I
uh
love it.
yeah, he's basically a druid demigod. They are very powerful. And then we
Demigod.
have mm-hmm. And when we have top druids representing kind of both alliance and horde races, we have Malfurion Stormrage, who is, a night elf, kind of representing alliance druids, and we have Heimel Rune Totem, who's a Tauron and kind of representing the horde druids, and they're all uniting together because they are tired of Ragnaros just burning all of the pretty nature.
Yeah.
Like we have to stop him. And what's the way to stop him? What's the way to stop him from the respawn? Well, as it just so happens, if you kill an elemental in their own elemental plane, they die for real.
Oh, wait. Oh. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the way to stop the respawns. They have to go to his own kill Ragnaros on his own turf, inside his big fiery palace in the Firelands. And that is a raid called the Firelands, where you, as the adventurers, go in and take care of more of Ragnaros' minions. You fight Vandrel Staghelm, among others, and then go and fight Ragnaros himself who, if we move on to our next slide here, we can see his picture, and he has legs now. Because he's
Oh,
in
what?
his own, because he's in his own world, and I guess the idea was he wasn't fully
Oh my
summoned into
goodness.
Azeroth first, so he didn't have legs back
He has
then.
legs?
I'm not entirely certain, but yeah, in his own world, he has legs.
Don't let me get in
Um,
my zone. My goodness, look at him. Oh my
yeah,
god.
he's quite the fiery hunk of material there. And of course, he's wielding Sulfuras, his big fiery hammer. That's kind of his big weapon.
Oh,
Yeah,
Warrior
Sulfur.
Quest.
Yeah, the Warrior Quest, exactly. Which, of course, gives you his ability of dealing the 8 damage, the fiery damage to a random enemy, just like you have when you are Ragnaros summoned by Majordomo Executus. It's that Die Insect ability right there.
Oh my god, that's
Um,
nuts. Yo, every time we do an episode, like I feel like I'm keeping up, I'm knowledgeable until a certain point where you say something that just completely catches me off guard. I didn't realize. I'm looking at the picture now. I thought from the distance I was sitting at, I thought the weapon was a person, but I sit closer. I didn't realize that was a weapon, and I didn't know it was sulfurous, and I didn't know it was his. Like I didn't know all this lore behind it. I'm loving this episode. Ragnaros the Firelord, man, this is so cool.
yeah, Sulfuras is like his big weapon of power there. And then of course he being the raid, if someone is a raid boss, then they almost always end up dying. That there's a few exceptions where sometimes someone will survive the encounter and they'll have a video that says, "Oh wait, they're not dead after all," after you do the big fight to beat them. But Ragnaros does, he is a goner right now. He's killed in the elemental plane of fire, and there is no longer a Fire Lord here. Um,
Yeah.
but his story isn't quite over yet because if we move along to the next slide here, we see a dark iron dwarf named High Justice Grimstone, who is one of the boss encounters in Blackrock, in the adventure and in the original content in WoW. He was a dungeon boss. Um, but basically, he is at this point the leader of a cult of Dark Iron Dwarves who, for some reason, want to bring Ragnaros back.
I knew it. I had this huge smile on my face as soon as you said it. I had no clue. Doing the pre-show, loading this up. I'm like, who is this character? And who's that? What's going on here? But as soon as you said, Ragnaros wasn't done yet, and I clicked on this guy, I saw his hands glowing, and I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So basically, a lot of time passes after Ragnaros is gone, and actually, it's discovered entirely by accident. So some Dark Irons are actually just going to the Firelands to try to get something to help repair a big special magic anvil that they have. But they accidentally stumble across, and there actually was a new guy in charge of the Firelands. His name was um and why? Oh man, why is that slipping me right now? But anyway, there was a new Lord of the Firelands. Just let me have a quick look to
Oh, of
remind
course, no
myself
problem.
what it is.
Hey, every lore master has
Um,
to look back, in the
yeah,
archives,
there's just
educate the class.
so much to maintain here. Um, let's see.
Hey, while you take a look, I think it's pretty cool to see the arc here. To hear about how it all started. Like I said in episode one, being a frazzled freshman, be learning as we go along. So it is cool to see and hear a lot of different characters, intersect and cross. Because throughout time, we will do many episodes on these said characters, and it'd be cool to see at different points in time, you know, um, where the characters we did in the past cross those stories. I'm just ready for it. Really excited about this
Yeah.
show. the whole idea of Lore
Definitely. Oh,
Masters.
I found it. It's Smolderon. Smolderon is the name of the new Fire Lord because
Smolderon.
most elementals have pun names. That's why
Yeah.
I just couldn't remember which one it was. It's about smoldering, but yeah,
Molderon.
basically, Smolderon was a new elemental lord, but he is missing somehow. No one knows where he is, and there's this cult that is attempting to resurrect Ragnaros. We don't know if they actually can succeed in doing it or how they would do it, but they're trying somehow. And so maybe Ragnaros' story isn't fully over yet. Maybe he'll be coming back. Maybe they're just a bunch of kooks who are attempting the impossible. We don't really know as of this recording. We'll
Mm,
have to see if the story ever develops in that direction.
okay.
Um, so that's the end of Ragnaros's canon story so far. We do have one last little thing I want to address as we move on to our final slide here, because there is a card that exists that I want to make sure there isn't any confusion with the actual lore, and that's the Ragnaros the Light Lord card from Paladin
Ah,
Legendary from Whispers of the Old God card set.
yes.
Um, this is fundamentally non-canon. Whispers of the Old
Okay.
Gods is a card set that is a very what if story. There, the idea is, what if the old gods got out and were ruling the world and corrupting everything? None of the stuff that happens there is actually canon to the Warcraft story. Hearthstone is very much its own thing in terms of like how tall tales work in the real world or myths or
Yes.
legends, people getting around the campfire and they're swapping stories inspired by real events, but exaggerating the truth here and there until it
Yeah.
becomes quite the story. So the idea of Ragnaros the Light Lord, according to the flavor text, says what happens when you corrupt an already corrupted old god? Double negative.
Double.
So that's what the flavor text of this card says. And so the idea behind this
uh,
one is that somehow the old gods corrupting Ragnaros, who was already corrupted, would somehow cancel out and he would become a really good guy who is just trying to heal all the insects instead of making die all the insects. So I wanted to make sure that this was fully addressed. This card is not a canon part of Ragnaros' story, but it's a very fun what if let's let our imagination go crazy type of scenario, a reimagining of the actual Ragnaros character.
oh man, this is beautiful. And hopefully over time I can help people that are like me that don't know much about Warcraft see it and consume it in a different way, because to hear the story about Ragnaros as our episode wraps up here, um to understand him fully now and play the game for 7 years at the time of this recording, um to hear like this last part of the show where you're explaining this is non-canon and how the card came to be created. I've read that flavor text for years, never understood what it meant, but now I get it. Like a double negative, like this is hilarious here. There's no way he's gonna be a good guy healing people. Like that's so funny. This is cool.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's the beautiful thing about the story. I love what you call a multimedia universe where, it's not, there's a lot of it in the game of World of Warcraft, but there's also, books and comics and audio dramas and lots of different things that all add little pieces to the story. Hearthstone is one of those things, I think. It just makes the world come alive a lot more when you think of people within this fictional story making fictional stories based on the fictional history of this world. It's just like
Yeah,
another level of
that's finesse.
immersion. That's one of the reasons I love Hearthstone. And Ragnaros, this is just one of those great examples. And I'm so happy we're able to talk about this one. I love this character. I love all of the cards that he's in, at the very least for fun and flavor, even if I'm not playing them at the time. Because, the cards have different
Oh
uses at
yeah.
different points in the game. But yeah, this has been a really great one. I hope that everybody really enjoyed learning about it. And if you want to learn more about the Elemental Lords or about other Hearthstone characters, you can check out some of my lore guides on the Out of Dot Cards website. I actually have a full one that I wrote quite some time ago about all the fire elementals in general. So it
Mm-hmm.
contains this
It's great.
information plus more about other fire elemental characters. And yeah, you can check that out. Check out a lot of other stuff. And Blakarot, where can people find you if they want more of your content?
Oh, most definitely. Well, first of all, you guys can always find me here, Goliath, my man, the lore master, over here doing these episodes at Loremasters HS. You guys can find me on Twitter at Blakarot. Also, find me on Twitch at Blakarot as well, double underscore. Just want to say real quick, it's got to feel cool. Uh, like I feel confident saying this as we get out of here. This has got to feel cool for people who already play and know World of Warcraft to like see a show like this come out where like we're discussing the cards and then they're gonna people who are like me on the fence. Now that I'm hearing more about it, I'm not being pushed towards it. I'm actually being pulled. Like I actually want to check it out and try this game. And then you're gonna have people who have never had no interest in it. Now they're gonna hear our show and consume the content and digest it in a different way, where it's like bite size, 1 hour episode, and it doesn't feel like homework. And then now, hey, this story might turn them on and say, I want to try that game out or try this expansion out. You know what I'm saying? Like when you told me about what the Firelands is and this idea of all these druids heading in the Firelands to be Ragnaros, like just that idea alone makes me want to play it. So I'm really excited for what this podcast is and every episode going forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love this. And this is a universe that has been over 20 years of writing and creating all the different aspects. It is deep. It can get really complicated. It can be really confusing when you're first trying to learn about it. So I'm happy that we can provide these little bite-sized pieces, and I really hope that people enjoyed them. Yeah, about time to sign out then, probably.
All right,
All
everybody.
right. You all have a good day or night wherever you are, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episode here on Lore Masters.
All right, guys. See you next time.